What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Political Soul Food. It's Monday, April the 15th. I'm ready to get down for another round of enlightenment, political chit chat. I want to discuss the things that matter, just want to make some changes. I want to keep moving in the right direction. And given that we have a Trump administration, there's a lot of work to do. Today's topic is the numbers that matter. What are the numbers that matter? And what do I mean by this topic here? Well, it all started one night ago. That's right. Last night at Starbucks, I was chatting with a few friends, but it was a chat mainly with one person who had some choice words to say about black people. He was a brother himself. And I just felt that conversation needed some context. And I wanted to share what that context is with all of you. I'm not going to get too far into the conversation I had last night. It was really about how black people see themselves, or if black people even reflect on their own identity, or people of color. And it went from how people of color in America think about themselves, or if they do at all, how people in the Caribbean, and how they think differently among each other, Dominicans versus the Haitians and so on. And that kind of got into talks about the political struggles in America in particular. And so the part of the conversation that is most relevant to me and for us tonight is the part about Trump win in 2016 and the possibility of him winning again in 2020. And so let me translate that, because a lot of people just say Trump. Is more like the Republican Party winning rather than just simply Trump. That's a very important distinction for me. While the individual is significant, but is not the most significant factor when we look at the historical canvas, when we look at the big picture. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what matters. For a particular person I was debating, I would say at this point, was that Trump's approval rating seems to have increased, but that's really among his own voters. And obviously they're going to be loud in support of him. But it's very clear that more than half the country in the world are against Trump. And also who takes these polls is another issue, who tends to take them. And tend to be people on the right that would take a poll that will examine Trump's performance. So one of the claims made was that the fact that there are so many people on, let's say, TV, or on Fox, or on podcasts, or even academics or intellectuals supporting Trump, that must mean that Trump is somehow persuading more and more people. But that is not the case. The deeper issue for me is that Trump's win is, I think, misunderstood and misinterpreted. And so what I wanted to do is offer my view, the way I look at the Trump issue. Now, it's not an anomaly. It is understandable that someone like Trump, whoever is championing the kinds of values that are expressed in the MAGA campaign, would be the forefront. That would just be obvious. Why? Because this country is founded on the kinds of identity that Trump is representing. White nationalism is not new. A lot of people may be surprised to see the white nationalism, taking root in this country, but it was founded at the inception of this country, even prior to. And to make my case, I would ask you, if you're interested, to go to YouTube, to my channel, Kasaun Henry, as it's spelled here on the social media platforms, and let me see. Volume is low. So let's see what's good here. Volume is low. And I know why the volume is low. Okay, hold on 1 second here. This is happening on the podcast. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna do this for the volume. Is the volume a little better now? The reason why it's low is because I use these devices here, and one of them is out of battery now. So unfortunately, I have to take the mic out. That might give you a little bit more of a give you a little bit more volume boost. But let me see here. Let's see if I can correct this issue. And if not, what we're going to do is just keep rocking. So, all right, so this is a little better. One of the things I could do is, let's see here. I don't even know where I actually put it. So if this is okay right now, Facebook, I'm just going to continue as is because I have to like change this battery right now. In fact, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to swap you out with Instagram. And give you some sound because IG is going off and on right now. All right, so how's that? Is that better? Is that a better boost for you? All right, cool. So hopefully this is better for y'all, and then we'll work on the volume for this other thing. So because IG is just kind of fronting right now, it's going off and on. So the deal is. I mean, do I need to start over with y'all over here? So the deal is we're talking about the numbers that matter. All right, the political numbers that matter. The reason why I wanted to talk about the political numbers that matter is because a lot of us are getting distracted by media and certain polls that are expressing enthusiasm, but there are certain things that go deeper than just the moment to moment feelings of either elation or depression. Either people feeling excited about their candidate winning or people feeling very sad about their candidate losing. This is important. Why is it important? All right, speaking to on the left, I'm speaking to the choir. I'm speaking to the church, right? I don't really expect many Republicans or GOP people to come on and chill with me, right? I'm not spitting the kind of stuff they want to hear. This is not their radio station. So I'm talking to people who are mostly opposed to Trump, right? And even those who may consider themselves so leftist, such a purist that they even see the Democratic Party as being insufficient. Okay? And I will also speak to those who just see both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as the same. I think I have something for them to share. And somebody want to hear my thoughts on Yang. So, all right, maybe, Anina, it's good to see you here. It's good to see Wayman here. Good to see everybody who's on here. I'll talk a little bit about him. And probably another podcast. I can do it this week if you like. If you maybe we can do this on Wednesday. I talk a little bit about him on Wednesday and a few others. I'll save that for a little later. I'll just let you know right now. My pick right at this minute is Kamala Harris. I do support Biden. Biden's going through some trouble, but I think Kamala Harris is the way to go at this moment. But we'll talk about Yang in a sec. Give me like Wednesday, we'll do that. So political numbers. The political numbers is important, y'all. It's really important. It's really, really, really important. Here's why. There are going to be ups and downs and enthusiasm. There's going to be progress for what you want, and then there's going to be pushback against what you want. What we need to do is look at sort of the structural changes. What are the structural changes? What are the perpetuating trends, or which trends are shifting, changing, evolving? And this is what I want us to to talk about. And there's some numbers, some poll numbers, some voter participation numbers that are really important to give us a little bit more insight about what's happening in politics. Because without knowing these details, we all are susceptible to what we see in our faces, right? So we want to be a little bit more like, I would have to say, let's say doctors or scientists in a sense, right? And short, critical thinkers. The reason why is because, you might go into a doctor's office expressing concern about a particular illness. Maybe you're having some pain, and you have a friend that tells you what this pain means or represents. It's a symptom of X, Y, and Z. But a doctor having experience with different kinds of causes of certain pains will have to look for herself or for himself as to what is going on. So they would do sort of a general checkup, check your temperature, check your heart rate, your pulse, your blood sugar levels, check your blood itself, to begin to narrow down to see which issues are at work, right? Which issues are systemic to you, which issues are part of your DNA, your genetic makeup, or part of your medical history, right? These are the issues that are going to really matter more than how you feel, and not disregarding how you feel, because how you feel helps the doctor figure out what's going on. So, but in politics, we got to do that for ourselves to a certain degree, or at least find doctors who will give us certain kinds of insights into these parameters that we want to tap in, that we want to be aware of. And that way we won't fall into, Trump's approval rating is increasing, or we won in 2008 and 12, and then we won in 2016. Now, white supremacy is going to take over, or everything we did was just nothing. It was a failure. And so here are some numbers that I want you to think about. And I'm just going to talk about them. I'm just really sharing some of my own research, the kinds of things that I consider when I get into debates with people, or when I want to understand, okay, what should I focus more on? And on Political Soul Food, I want to share some healthy food for your soul mind. And so let's pretend I'm talking, I'm chatting with you about my response to a person that I was talking to last night. One of the concerns is, if you see all these people who are looking at Trump as being successful, think about minorities like Candace Owens, who are much more vocal and visible now, and appealing to African Americans that Trump might be able to do something on their behalf, and that the Democratic Party is actually not as committed to social justice as it advertises, and therefore Trump is actually destroying the Democratic Party, and this means that all the progress that we thought is happening is coming to an end, or probably even worse, never was happening all along, something like that. So bear with me. I don't know if it's kind of like school stuff for you, but I'm definitely going to feed off of this. My response was that, okay, I see the people who are more visible now. Yes, I see Trump being praised by his base. But what I also see are a set of numbers, a set of actions that are consistent, and in fact that are intensifying. And one is the expansion of the left. That means people who are most likely to vote Democrat, or even and beyond. In other words, we're talking about there's an increase in people who are supportive of racial justice and economic justice, who are supportive of social liberalism. In other words, supportive of choice in homosexuality, supportive of affirmative action, supportive of gender rights, supportive of equal pay for women, so supportive of an increase in funds for education, supportive of evidence-based policy as opposed to Christian-based policy. All right, it's people who are supportive of a multicultural American identity. So that's what I mean. The increase on the left. That's what I mean. That increase is beginning to show itself within the voting process on the left. So much so that numbers are showing us that the left is consistently winning the popular vote. This was not always the case. The beginning of this trend happens in, at least since the civil rights movement, when the left took a beating for decades after Nixon won, and by a phenomenal electoral victory 2 times in a row, and passing the baton over to Reagan, who also does a great job for another 8 years, who also passes the baton, who then passes the baton to H.W. Bush. All right. So the right was consistently winning the electoral and popular vote for the most part. Things took a turn, particularly in Bill Clinton's first election in 1992. Around this time, we are seeing the increase of voter participation by minorities all across the board. Minorities, black minorities, colored minorities, Asian, religious minorities, you name it. Pretty much everybody who have been ostracized or whose voices have been minimized by the sort of norm of the Christian, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant American constituency. So check this out. When Clinton comes in 1992, there was about 55% voter turnout, and he wins 370 of the electoral vote to H.W. Bush's 168, and he wins 444,909,889 roughly popular votes to George H.W. Bush's 39,104,545. In short, he wins by a 5 million vote lead. That advantage increases in 1996 when he goes against Bob Dole, and he wins 47 million, nearly 47.5 million to Bob Dole's 39 million. And so the advantage there increases to about 8,200,716. Right? So in 1992, the left wins the popular vote. And in 1996, the left wins the popular vote. Now in 2000, the left also wins the popular vote by about 500,000, but we lost the electoral college by a few points. All right, and we all kind of know what happened there. Then this is in 2000, Bush versus Gore. Gore actually wins the popular vote, but loses. Then in 2004, Bush goes against Kerry, and he wins the popular vote in this case by about 3 million. Okay, notice that this is the same amount that Hillary wins the popular vote, approximately 3 million, right? Which is crazy that she lost, but it's it happens. Obama comes in. So let me just stop here. 2004 is the first time the right sees a win in the popular vote since 1992. Then in 2008, Obama wins the popular vote by 9.5 million. In 2012, Obama wins the popular vote again by about 4 million. We're close to 5 million, actually, approximately 5 million. They say, there's various polls. So one poll that I grabbed, I tried to get the most conservative poll numbers just in case somebody want to come after me. So I'm really going by the lowest number, right, that's available when you examine various polls. I could have gotten more generous polls or taken an average of the polls, but I'm taking a very conservative number. So that puts Obama in 2012 just under 5 million vote popular vote lead. So in 2016, Hillary also wins the popular vote by 3 million. So how many elections are these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In the last 7 presidential elections, Democrats have won 6 of them, 6 of the popular vote in 6 of those elections. This is important. So you might ask, well, how in the world did Trump win? How in the world did Bush win? We'll get into that. But I want you to see these numbers. These numbers are important because they actually show us a deeper trend than people may argue. Hillary should have did this. Hillary should have did that. Hillary won by a decisive number of popular votes. So to ask her to win by more when there are many elections that win by much less, okay, misses the point, because what we're saying is that Hillary failed to be super extraordinary. And then when we fail to acknowledge the context of her loss, then we start doing what we do when we diagnose ourselves without knowing anything about the body, right? In a studied way, sort of like a doctor, a physician, or at least a nurse, okay? So these numbers help us get a better understanding of how we lost and what we need to do, what things we should pay attention to, and what things is just chatter and noise, or paranoia, fears, very understandable emotions and states of minds, but certainly less important in terms of devising a strategy because they don't meet the criteria of any kind of research or fact checking. So, what am I saying after all this? Sorry, it's getting a little technical if you think it is. And I just urge you to do this yourself when you have time, or replay this video and then see listen to the numbers and check the numbers yourselves. What I'm saying is that the left has been doing pretty good in turning out in presidential elections, although we need to be more consistent with it. But it's showing us what our problems are. And as I mentioned before, our problems are gerrymandering, voter suppression. And I think that's like the number one problem. And so, in other words, that means that if our Achilles heel or our weakness is gerrymandering and voter suppression, then it puts a demand on our voter turnout even more so. So in that way, we have to turn out, regardless of who our candidate is, who the nominee is, we have to turn out more, knowing that we have to overcompensate because a lot of our votes are drained through, interestingly, legal means by gerrymandering, right? And so, which is why local elections are important. Speaking of which, now let's turn to local elections, the numbers that matter most. If you want to understand how Trump got into office through a sort of a political science analysis, all right, the historical analysis, the social and cultural analysis, I think we are all clear about, and I express that. I express what it is. I wrote a blog post on this, which I think is pretty on point. And there are many other books I can recommend that goes into more details, because I actually use a lot of that research, and also a lot of polls, bipartisan polls, that pretty much weighed people's sentiments. At least those who voted for Trump and voted for Obama, it sort of examined their values and motivations for voting one way or another. And so really the real deal is that people are reacting against this, I would say, imminent multicultural evolution of the American identity. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to look at some of the numbers. I'm not going to talk about, we know what the whole MAGA thing really is. Fine. But here's some numbers you should know. Let's talk about why we don't have the House and why we don't have the Senate. All right? We're going to talk about that. The reason why we don't have the White House is because of, again, gerrymandering and voter suppression. And we cannot afford not to show up. And that's why we have to overcompensate. But now let's look at the House and the Senate. In 2008, 65 million people showed up to vote for representatives, House of Representatives. 65 million Democrats and 52 million Republicans voted for House of Representatives on the right. The right posed such remarkable defense by using what I call kamikaze disinformation, a technique that they're still using, lying, paranoid, basically what we call paranoid politics, whistle dog politics, race baiting, gaslighting, and blatant obstruction. And what happened, that discouraged the left. It discouraged the left so much that the left became as a whole blind to the success that they were making. And we lost the House because, and I remember this. I really remember when, and I wasn't really in the details at the time. I wasn't as interested, in the details of voter turnout as I am now. But it was something instinctual about. I had a concern about many people in the New York Times interviews saying that they are not as enthusiastic about voting in the midterms. And the New York Times is center left. So whoever's on the New York Times, especially people talking about their concern, the majority of them are really on the left. And I was like, this is scary. All these people who are talking about they're discouraged, and we actually have the advantage. And a lot of people was expressing, they were discouraged because how long it was taking for, the economy to get back on track, or how long it was taking for Obama to get Obamacare pushed, and also the fact that Obamacare wasn't, a single payer, and it was just like, what's going on? So a lot of people were discouraged, not realizing the historic event of actually having the opportunity to usher in healthcare reform in any way. This is something that many presidents aspire to, at least rhetorically, or after their presidency, wishing they could have done something more, but were not willing to risk their presidency because of the backlash that pretty much Obama is getting, and Obamacare is still enduring. Obama was advised not to push or lead with healthcare, and he was like, no, I want to do it. And it was like, this could mean you end up a one-term president. He was like, well, so what? I'm doing this. And he did it. But we did not appreciate that. So the 65 million people who voted to get a House of Representatives in place that will be able to help usher in something like Obamacare and many other progressive and liberal policies, jump shipped in the 2010 elections for the House of Representatives. In fact, we experienced a 19 million voter drop. 19 million voters sat out when they had the ball on their court. After we scored the touchdown. I've never seen a football team sit out after scoring a touchdown. A touchdown is a touchdown. Sometimes it can just be 1 yard, a 1 yard advance and get you a touchdown. But sometimes, I don't want to call us punks. I just think that is, we don't understand the fight. And also, some of us don't know how much we have to fight for. And that's a real issue. And I can appreciate that. The point is, the number that mattered in terms of where we are now and how the Republicans got the House or was able to maintain the House from 2010 all the way up to 2016. Obviously, we got it back. The number that matters is the 19 million drop. If you know somebody who sat out of that election, but talking smack now, or who dropped out, was talking smack about Obama, they're part of the problem. And Trump, as he said before, for people who didn't vote, he said, thank you for not voting. Thank you. So you got a lot of people who's complaining about what the Democratic Party didn't do, but they didn't even show up. So the number that mattered is the 19 million drop. So by 2010, only 39 million people showed up. All right, 65 million to 39 million. Psst, that's a huge dip. Now, to be fair, let me be fair. There is typically a lower voter turnout during the midterm elections in general, right? That's just something that happens. It's not good, but it just happens. But this was a bigger drop than usual. Here's another number that matters in this context. The 52 million people who voted in 2008 for the right and for the House of Representatives, there was a decrease as well, a typical decrease, but it was only a 7 million drop. In other words, 45 million people voted for the Republican Party to get the House. So we dropped from 65 million to 39 million. Republicans only dropped from 52 to 45 million. So the typical drop of people who didn't show up, but ours dipped. That's on us. We, the people, Democrats that is, lost the House. Part of that group, I want to say, were crybabies. A certain percentage were probably just like confused and frustrated, legitimately. Many others were misinformed. We lost the House. Those are the numbers that matter. For all we want to say about white nationalism, we gave them the House, and they took it, and they kept it. We gave them a House because we didn't really know what we had, or I understand things are so bad that even good is not good enough. However, the good doesn't get good enough if you don't work hard enough to get it good enough. So it's not going to happen overnight. So we lost that. We lost that. And we lost that in the same way. We lost the Senate in the same way. Some more numbers that matter. Check it out. 2008, 33.6 million of us on the left came out to vote for the Senate versus 29 million on the right. and we were able to gain the Senate. That's how we got the House and the Senate in 2008. But by the time 2014 came in, only 19 million of us showed up. Only 19 million. Therefore, there was a 14 million voter decrease. We stayed home. Now, I ain't gonna blame all of us. There's a lot of voter suppression going on too. So a lot of that has to do with voter suppression as well. But that does not excuse that high number, because many of us just simply stayed home. And so we basically just fell into our pity story. We're not getting what we want now. So people don't show up and we lose the House. And it goes, look, you see everything that's going bad, and we blame the corporate Dems or the moderate Dems or whoever we want to blame, and then don't even show up, and then you lose the Senate. And then we don't have the House and the Senate, and then the Republican parties double down on that and win the White House. We still could have had the House and the Senate. Something like that happened when Nixon got in. It makes no sense. We got the numbers. So these are the numbers that matter. So in 2008, 29 million people voted on the right to get the GOP in versus our 33.6 million. And then their number dipped a little bit. Their number dipped about 7 million there again, which is normal because fewer people show up. So in other words, they were actually more civically active, because the dip, that 7 million dip, is pretty much understandable. It's on average. 22.6 million showed up so there was a dip from 29 to about 22 million. 14 million of us did not show up. So basically, we were the team. Imagine watching a team in sports get mad while they are winning, but missed a few shots or didn't win a few games in the season that they felt that they should have won, but they're still leading. They still got a plus score. Just giving up, throwing tantrums, or not even showing up for the game, and just losing by default. Because that's what we did. That's what we did. That's what we did. So those numbers matter more than any talk we got right now about who's going to be president, what the Democratic Party is going to do for us, and this and the third. The issues that we're dealing with can be traced back to those numbers. And if you want to feel discouraged, or if you want to feel unsatisfied about which candidate or which politician didn't do what, but you want to hoop and holler about how bad things are now, and didn't vote, then you dug your own grave, more or less. So for all that yelling I was doing, hope I was yelling. These numbers matter, folk, and when I get into discussions, people, when they try to come at me with the Hillary stuff, I mean, look, all I need to do is remind them that Hillary won by a larger margin than Bush did in 2000. Well, actually, I'm sorry, because Bush didn't win the popular vote. Also, Bush, she did just as well as Bush did in Bush Jr. in 2004 in terms of the popular vote. Okay. And she wasn't that far behind Obama's 2012 results. He had about 5 million, and she won about 3 million, which would be normal, because given Obama's election was historic. So you would think that there would be a spike in the turnout of the first black president, whoever he or she would be. There would be a spike. So to say that, well, she didn't get the same amount black vote, yeah, but right, because she wasn't. So she would have had to been perfect. crazy. And I'm talking to people on the left. So be careful about, some of the, I get into the social and cultural factors that determine, how people think about certain things. But I want us to also dig a little deeper and get to some of the roots. Okay. My boy Wayman here said, I think that education played a big part on why nobody comes out to vote in the midterms. Absolutely. Education plays a role. You're right, Wayman. Sadly, a lot of people I know don't even know the basic responsibilities or powers of the three branches of the United States. Like, all right, I know we got issues with racism, economic policies and all that stuff, immigration. When Obama got elected, people thought that he was able to just write a blank check and just say, hey, do this, do that, and that. I want this now, tomorrow, next week, next weekend. And they were dismayed. Some were dismayed. And I'm happy that they were dismayed when they found out that that's not how it goes. And this was after they realized that midterm elections mattered. What's worse were that people began to turn on him in the party, in the representatives, by consuming this narrative that, oh, well, the reason why we didn't turn out was because they didn't do what, they said they were going to do. Well, nobody, no president, even Trump, with all of the control the GOP has, still not able to get every single thing they want. I mean, they really want, you see how Notre Dame is burning? That is how they envisioned Obamacare when they coming into 2016. After winning, they thought that it was going to be up in flames and just let it burn. But it wasn't that simple. It wasn't that simple. It is not that simple. Just the same, it wasn't that simple for Obama to do all that he did. Not just basic political resistance, but you also have that resistance fueled by racism, bigotry, xenophobia, and other kinds of emotions that are I think the kind of fuel, the super fuel that can burn for a very long time and can provoke people to do the worst. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing the worst of a lot of people come out and in the way that they're willing to support fascist policies. I know close friends and not close friends. I know people who are in my proximity who have joined that bandwagon, and I would hope that I would like to believe that they just got on this bandwagon and not quite sure where the wagon is going. But so yeah. Wayman said, nobody teaches the dynamics of politics in detail. Nobody knows what the Speaker of the House job is. No one understands what filibusters are. Yo, you're right, man. You're right. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should talk more about some of those basic details here. But I don't know. I think people who come here, if they don't know, they would do their own research. And so this is kind of why, I kind of got into political soul food, because for the most part, I was into researching this stuff for myself. And then, when I was teaching, I would share some of this stuff in class, and then like encourage people to do research, regardless of their party background, just into the mechanics of politics and stuff like that, and then also just learning how to just research objectively. And but when I realized that people in my own backyard, people in my neighborhood were oblivious to some basic details that you're mentioning, Wayman, then I realized that I wouldn't say I'm part of the problem, but I would say that I do have a responsibility to like speak up. And that's sort of why, I do the Political Soul Food. So at least, people that know me will at least be exposed one way or another to the kinds of details that they should know about politics. Or at least the basic thing is like when to vote. Elections coming. I will never forget that I was reminding my family members to vote in the midterm, 2014 midterm. I ain't never forget that. And I remember I had said to my friend, I remember in the 2010 midterm, I was like, did y'all vote? I went into Starbucks and it was like, vote for what? And I was like, it's the midterms, we gotta vote. They were like, well, what? What are you talking about? And I didn't think of it as a big deal until we lost the house. I was like, holy crap. Like, this is bad. Because it's not just among my friends. This is around the nation. And then the same thing happened in 2014. And I was like, never again. I'm screaming when it's time to vote. I'm yelling it out. Because I lose when they don't turn out. So I'm doing this, I'm being self-interested. I want you to be politically active so that this society can be better. That's how I see it. And so I think that this should be more on our minds, more than ever, that the GOP, no matter what we see now, no matter what policies they have passed and what justices they have put in, which are serious issues to deal with, they're still on a defensive. Because what I'm saying, they know. They know this. They know this all too well because they see it as a threat. Remember, they're taking their country back. As Trump said, we're taking our country back. MAGA. This is it. They are fighting for their lives. They see the changes that happen. They understand that the little steps can lead to a big change. So while we cry about our small progress, they are gearing up to abolish any kind of progress. And all we do is just help them when we go, oh, we didn't get single payer. And then, they're not, Obama's not this, or this person not that, or Pelosi's not this. And meanwhile, they are fighting day in and day out against politicians who are using every trick in the book and out of the book to stop what we want. That's the real deal. So it's the numbers that matters, folk. The numbers that matter. Some of these numbers I mentioned are numbers that if you don't have to remember these numbers, but you should be aware of these numbers and should be mindful of the implications of these numbers. Number one, we have the numbers to elect a Democratic president from now until I don't know when. The demographic revolution that we have going on right now is phenomenal, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't activate it. It doesn't mean anything if we don't activate it. So, voter turnout is number one. Protecting the right to vote is number two, if not number one. Between those two, that should be on our mind. And we need to, just as much as we are putting up resistance against Trump, we need to remind people to get out there and vote. And we need to support our politicians to protect that right to vote. Like Stacey Abrams, I think a lot more and more of us are realizing that. Even Obama sort of redirected one of his organizations, sort of dissolved it to say we need to take all of our resources to fight gerrymandering and voter suppression, because that is really where our problem is. That voter suppression and gerrymandering and the voter turnout. That's it right there. That's it. Right now, that's where our focus has to be. I tried to submit some numbers to show that that's what matters. That Trump's win his win was based on hijacking the popular vote. Republicans know they can't win no popular vote. They ain't winning no popular vote. I mean, we have young kids coming up now. I mean, our multicultural constituency, our African American community. I mean, like, people just tired of that nonsense. I mean, the white nationalism. I mean, they showed their face. They showed their faces. Trump has exposed it all. He took off the mask of white supremacy. They're not winning the popular vote no time soon. They can't win it if everybody comes out to vote. Even in sort of the decline, the popular vote for the presidency, they have to rely only on electoral votes, which means is in certain states, particularly the Rust Belt states, they have to suppress the black vote, suppress the Latino vote, and the best way to do that is create voter ID laws, and to just make people so discouraged, make people so blind to the very policies that were in their favor that they are discouraged. The major question for them is, how do we get people on the left to not want to vote? How do we get them to just attack each other? How do we get them to not vote at all? Or even worse, vote for us to protest against their own interests. I mean, a sizable percentage of Bernie Sanders voters voted for Trump. Like a protest vote. Oh, all right, so Bernie didn't win. Now we're just going to vote for Trump. And now you're scrambling, talking about, oh, we got to, protect the immigrants. Now we got to protect Obamacare. Oh, we need single payer. Oh, we want a Green New Deal. You helped create this problem. You would have been closer to a Green New Deal with Hillary in office. So stay up, y'all. That's Political Soul Food. You can check me out on Patreon if you want to support this, or PayPal. It's under my name, paypal.me/Kasaun Henry. Patreon, patreon.com/Kasaun Henry. You can become a Patreon. If you have questions or topics you want me to cover, just hit me up. I post these discussions on YouTube, so on Facebook they'll pretty much be there, but on YouTube, I put a recording of them up there. I'm just trying, to bring out a few encouraging words, but not only that, bring out a few facts that you can check for yourselves in order for some passionate optimism. And when I say passionate optimism, I'm not just talking about wishful thinking. I'm talking about keeping your head up, keeping your eyes on the prize, and reasons why you should do that. And the numbers that I wanted to submit, I'm hoping can persuade you to do that, and then you can use for yourself to persuade others, to convince others, not through just mere rhetoric, just through the facts. It's not going to be tough, because working with a lot of people is always difficult. And, I always see the left more as cats in a sense, just more individualistic in many ways than the right, which sort of hides behind this notion of individualism and private property. But they will vote like wolves, and they will tear us apart like wolves. So we need to get our act together. We need to understand where we are and our political capital, which we have right now. But it ain't going to mean a thing if we don't combine. And if we don't look not 1, 2, 3, we have to look 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. The same dude, as I said, this whole conversation, today's discussion was sparked by a discussion I had yesterday. And the person said, well, why you keep looking at some context or the past? I'm talking about right now. A loss is a loss. We lost the election. I said, we didn't lose just out of a moment. The loss we see was the result of stages of attacks over years, over a decade. When we lost in 2010 the House, represented, and when we lost down the ballot, those Republican constituents were setting up voter suppression laws. They were redistricting their communities for the next election to win, and then for the following election to win. So the loss wasn't just a snap of a finger. So don't sit here and tell me a loss is a loss for us, just like it just happened on a snap of a finger. No, it was devised, it was crafted by people who are patient enough to take advantage and exploit our need for immediate gratification in politics. That's what happened. That's what happened. History matters. History matters, y'all. History matters. Critical thinking matters. So listen, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm going to holler at y'all tomorrow. We're going to be up. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Tuesday's Toxic Trump Report. So tune in. Check me out. Make sure y'all subscribe to on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. Show some support on YouTube. Subscribe there. I'll be throwing up not just the Political Soul Food live podcast, but I also do features. They're pre-recorded where I interview people, and those are not live. Or I just throw up some other videos that might be entertaining or educating for you. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. Peace out. Wayman, thanks a lot, man. We're gonna chat it up more. Peace.